So first we have a blessing in disguise. A blessing in disguise. It's when something bad happens to you, but it turns out to be good. So first, let's look at the pronunciation of it. A blessing. Blessing in disguise. Don't separate, it's an expression. Look at it as a whole thing. A blessing in disguise. A blessing in disguise. Can you repeat that? Awesome. A blessing in disguise. A blessing in disguise. All right, so something bad happens and then it turns out to be good. It turns out to be good. It's just like the arrow is kind of black. You cannot really see it because of the chair, but let's keep going. So for example, his illness. The guy was sick and it turns out it was a blessing in disguise because he married his nurse, right? So the guy was sick and then he met the lady and then they got married. So being sick was a blessing in disguise. So it was something bad, but because of that thing that was bad, something good happened. Okay? So second one, being fired was a blessing in disguise. Now I have my own business, right? So he lost his job and now he has his own business. So the first example is like being fired was a blessing in disguise, and now losing his job was a blessing in disguise. So being fired, losing his job was a blessing in disguise. So first he was sad, but then he started his own business. So it was a blessing in disguise. Pay attention to the pronunciation of business, okay? Business, business, business. So he started his own business. So losing his job was a blessing in disguise. Third example. So if growing up without a TV at home was a blessing in disguise. Nowadays, I love to read. So, the person that is saying the person didn't have any TV at home, and because of that, the person started to read a lot because he didn't have a source of entertainment such as a TV. So instead, he was reading a lot of books. So not having TV at home was a blessing in disguise. It was like, oh man, I really wish I had a TV, but not having a TV made me a really good reader. And second expression, a dime a dozen. A dime a dozen. So a dime is a 10-cent coin, okay? So in the United States, if you say a dime, it means 10 cents, okay? So a dime, 10 cents, okay? So a dime a dozen means that something is very common or doesn't have much value. So and or doesn't have much value. Sometimes you can just refer into it as something that doesn't have much value or something that is very common or something that doesn't have much value and it's common. So let's look at some examples. I know it sounds a little bit confusing, but let's look at some examples. So a dime a dozen. That's the pronunciation, okay guys? A dime a dozen. Don't separate. Don't read a dime a dozen. Okay, so becomes a dime a dozen. Dozen. A dime a dozen. Can you repeat that? Awesome. Okay, so a dime a dozen. So PhDs, right? When you finish your college and then you get a master's and you get like a doctorate, so it's very common nowadays, right? I could be saying that it doesn't have value, or is that something common, or it's something common and doesn't have value. So it really depends on the context. Okay, so the context is gonna dictate if it's something bad or it's just like you're saying that something's common. Okay, so it's very common. So lots of people have PhDs nowadays compared to the past. Okay, so lots of people have PhDs nowadays. So example two. For example, books like this one are a dime a dozen. Write something original. Okay, so books like this are a dime a dozen. These books are very common. Okay, so try to write something original. Try to write something different because that's very common. Okay, so probably there's like um, some it's criticizing to some extent. Okay, so books like this are very common. Nobody needs to read this anymore because everybody already wrote about that, right? So, for example, videos like about language learning, they are a dime a dozen. There are many videos out there, so that can mean that they have value or not, or that just can mean that they're common. Okay. uh, Number three, jobs like this are a dime a dozen. So jobs like his are a dime a dozen. So the person has a very common job, a very common job. So a dime a dozen, or it just means that there are like a lot of jobs, um, and may doesn't have much value. So you cannot really see it. Now you can. So jobs like his are a dime a dozen. Programming jobs nowadays are a dime a dozen. It's very common. Lots of jobs out there. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. It can be depending on the context, but a dime a dozen. It's very common. Programming jobs nowadays are a dime a dozen. All right. Third expression, to beat around the bush. So let's try to pronounce it. Beat around the bush. Beat around the bush. Beat around the bush. Beat around the bush. Okay, so all right, don't beat around the bush, come straight to the point. Okay, just tell me, right? Why do you have to say don't beat around the bush? So the guy is literally beating around the bush. If that ever help you, like trying to imagine that, so you're beating around the bush. So if you want to ask me, just ask. Don't beat around the bush. Don't beat around the bush. Okay, just ask me, all right? So don't beat around the bush. Another example, my boss never gives me a straight answer. He always beats around the bush. So you ask your boss something and he keeps like going in circles. Okay, so he's going in circles. So he keeps like beating around the bush. You ask something to someone and the person doesn't give you the straight answer you're expecting. They are beating around the bush. So another example, you don't have time to beat around the bush. Your phone's battery is going to die soon. So just tell me what you have to say, because we're no longer be able to talk because your phone battery is gonna die, all right? So beat around the bush. Don't beat around the bush. Just tell me what you have to say. Fourth expression, better late than never. Better late than never. Better late than never. Better late than never. Can you repeat that? Awesome. Better late than never. Better late than never. So look, we have two ends, then never, then never. These two ends, you don't have to pronounce those Q's. That's very hard. So just say the never, the never. The two ends become just one. They become just one. Okay. So the never. Better late than never. All right. So sorry, I was late for the meeting today. I got stuck in traffic. Stuck in traffic. When you're stuck, you're not able to move. So she got stuck in traffic. So she was saying, "Hey, I got stuck in traffic. I was late." And then you come and say, "Okay, better late than never. At least you're here." Okay? So better late than never. Better late than never. All right. Another example is she got her high school diploma at the age of 80. Look. She got her high school diploma at the age of 80. So that's better late than never, right? Better late than never. And another example is, sorry, my gift came late. But better late than never, right? Better late than never. At least I sent the gift, right? Better than not sending. It's better to get there late than never. Better late than never. And last but not least, least important, okay? Okay, last but not least, stab someone in the back. Stab. So to stab, that's the verb. You have a knife and you stab someone, okay? So it means to betray, okay? Let's learn how to pronounce. Stab someone in the back. Can you repeat that? Stab someone in the back. Stab someone in the back. Someone in the back. Someone in the back. All right, very good. Stab someone in the back. Stab someone in the back. Stab someone in the back. I thought she was my friend, but she stabbed me in the back. She stabbed me in the back. She betrayed me. She did something that was terrible to me. Okay, so she stabbed me in the back. Look, she has a knife on her back and she's ready to stab. He was stabbed in the back by a business partner. So, like you think you can trust someone, but the person comes and betrays you. So the person stabbed you in the back. He was betrayed by his business partner. Okay, so he was betrayed. All right, that's all that we have for today. I hope that was not too confusing. I hope you learned something new. And as a way of practicing, just write it down in the comments and let me know what you would like to see next. Would you like to do something like an interactive practice? Would you like to talk about pronunciation, grammar? What things you've been facing now? What challenges do you have with the language, and how can I help? So let me know in the comment section. And if you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. That helps me a lot to keep going with this work. And I hope to see you again soon. Let's keep it up. All right, bye.